Welcome to Mama's Planted, the podcast where we dig deep, get rooted in Christ, and grow together through all seasons of motherhood. I'm Vanessa, your host, and I'm so excited you're here. Whether you're a new mom, expecting, or caring for little ones, this is your safe space to laugh, cry, and thrive. Each episode will dive into the challenges and joys of raising tiny humans. So grab your coffee, throw on your mom bun, and let's walk this journey together with grace, faith, and a whole lot of fun. Welcome to another conversation of Mama's Planted. I am your host, Vanessa, and I am joined today by Renee Mora, Authentic Church Storyteller. Thank you for being here, Renee.
Thanks for asking me. I'm excited.
Of course. So today we're going to be talking about parenting through seasons of change, which really we know as moms, we know that so well. Just so many changes that come along with that. But before we get into our topic for the day, I have some very important questions to ask you. Okay. So what is the goat chicken wing flavor?
Okay, I don't have a very exciting answer for this. I'm just like a honey barbecue girl.
Okay.
My family hates honey barbecue, and that's just too bad. That's what I'm ordering.
I would have to say I do enjoy honey barbecue, but I would have to say buffalo.
Yeah.
I just love buffalo.
I can't do the crazy, insane hot things where it's like, let's just be in pain together. No, I'm not doing that.
Yeah, that's like a whole different, that's a whole different experience.
Yeah.
Okay. Goat worship song.
Okay, that changes for me.
Okay.
I tend to fixate on one song at a time for it'll be on repeat for months, and then I'll be like, moving on. So right now I'm on, I think it's called At the Altar and it's Elevation and Abby Gamboa, and it's on repeat.
Yeah, I would say that mine changes often too, but I feel like the one I keep coming back to is Maverick City. What is the name of that song? We sing it almost not every Sunday, but, Praise.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Every time it comes on, I just want to get up and start dancing.
Yeah.
So I love that
Mine
one.
used to be Maverick City's Refiner.
Yes, that one's so good too.
But then the Lord started answering it, as the memes say, and I was like, you know what? Never mind.
You're like, wait, Lord.
Right. Oh, I forgot this involved fire.
Okay. And then goat family tradition.
Okay. Christmas oriented, of course. When I had my second daughter on Christmas Day. But so I had my one little kid, and she was like a year and a half old or whatever. And my mom bought her a copy of the Polar Express. And so I read it to her, and then we have read it every Christmas since. And I'm talking, they're now adults, and I'm still reading it. But last year was really special because it was the first Christmas since my mother died, and I couldn't read it. I could not open my mouth. And my youngest daughter, pulled the book towards her, and she's like, I'll read it to you this year. And I was like, okay, I'll just be over here crying in the corner.
I love that tradition.
Yeah, I hope they continue with it too.
Yeah, I love that. Mine is also Christmas related. So every year, we've actually kept this tradition too, ever since I was younger. My grandma, who is no longer with us, she started a tradition where on Christmas Day, actually Christmas Eve, that night, because it's a just Hispanic tradition to celebrate on Christmas Eve, right? So at midnight, when it's technically Christmas Day, she'd pull out a birthday cake, and we would sing happy birthday to Jesus.
I love that.
And then usually the youngest cousin gets to blow out the candles. And we have kept that in the family ever since. So I hope that as my boys grow older, they kind of keep that tradition on too.
I love that. That's really cute.
Yeah. Okay. Well, now that we've got some goat things out of the way, let's go ahead and talk about parenting through seasons of change. There are just so many things that come along with being a parent, being a mother specifically as well, right? And there's so many different seasons that we go through. So I know for you, specifically when I was thinking about this conversation that we would be having, I was like, man, Renee has really gone through a lot of different seasons of change. And I would just really love our listeners to kind of be a part of the conversation with us as far as what that might look like, because maybe there is a mom out there who is struggling with her teenagers or struggling with her now adult children. Like, how am I supposed to do this? How am I supposed to move forward from this point forward? So before we kind of start that though, I kind of want you to share a little bit about like your family structure and maybe a couple of like the major life changes that you've had along the way.
Sure. So I'm married to my husband, Anthony. We didn't get married till we were 32 and we immediately had kids. So we really haven't had a season of it just being the two of us yet. Really looking forward to that. Just kidding. I love my kids, but like I want that time too, right? So we have 3 girls. They're, how old are they? 22, almost 21 and 18. Anthony got saved when I was pregnant with my 3rd child, and I recommitted my life to the Lord at that point, and we've been all in since then. But he immediately started, as he does, bringing us through massive changes. I worked full-time, and he spoke to me very clearly to quit my job and stay home and homeschool these girls, which was a big deal. We lived outside in the DC suburbs, and we were effectively cutting our income in half. So he was teaching us to trust him. But it was interesting because I had all that time with the girls and just like the front row seat, like literally every second of the day, you know, for all these different phases that they're going through. You know, I think something that is unique to moms in particular is, you know, every person is going to go through all these transitions in life, but moms in particular have to also carry the transitions their children are going through, and even their husbands sometimes, you know, so there's like that extra weight of it all. So my kids, my oldest 2 kids still live at home with us. They're busy with their lives, but they do still live with us. And my youngest daughter just left for college. So not too far away, but too far for me.
Yeah. How do you feel like, you know, these changes have impacted your relationship with your children?
Well, probably the biggest transition that we went through as an entire family started in a very typical way. You know, I homeschooled my kids, and because of like the money situation, we just always planned on our kids. We taught them from age 4, you're going to community college, then you're going to a Virginia state school, right? But in August of 2019, Bronte was starting her senior year, and she sat us down one morning and said, hey, I got to talk to you about something. Did you guys, I know what the plan has always been, but did you pray about that? Because it doesn't feel like my plan. Oh my gosh. I was like, ouch. And I was not going to lie. The answer was, yes, we prayed about it 14 years ago when you were 4. And we really just started going in the direction the Lord told us to go and never paused to be like, should we turn left or right or just keep going straight? So we just kept plowing ahead. But a lot had changed in our lives, you know, financially and in other ways that we could reconsider that, you know. But why that sparked such a huge change in our family is because I knew that coming out of my family of origin, which was really fraught with a lot of codependency, that I knew that I did not have the skills to let my daughter go well into this next phase of her life. And that it was going to be a very bad year if I didn't get some help. So that conversation, the next morning, I called and got myself into counseling.
Wow.
And it's been amazing because that one little conversation sparked so much. 6 months after that, the Lord called us to move down here to Florida to help plant Authentic Church. You know, and eventually my own kids started their counseling journey. So it's been nothing but change since that conversation, you know.
Right.
And we've been going through it together, which sometimes is beautiful and a lot of times is super messy and stressful.
Yeah. Yeah. So I feel like one of the biggest changes that you guys have had, right, has been your journey of counseling and then moving from Virginia to now Florida.
Right.
Do you feel like your parenting style kind of changed?
Oh, yeah. It had to.
Yeah.
In January of 2020, it's interesting. We're in Virginia. Our girls are friends with kids down here in Orlando through fine arts. And so it was the 21 days of prayer and fasting were coming up. And our church wasn't really doing that much with it. But down here, they were like going crazy. They came down, they had been FaceTiming with their friends and talking about, hey, what are you guys fasting? And my girls were like, oh, we're going to fast social media. And they came downstairs and said, our friends down in Orlando are like, they're drinking water all day. And then asking us like, what books are you going to be reading? What sermons are you going to be watching? And, we took that as a challenge.
Right.
Right. And we had this sense of like, oh, we're coasting spiritually. Like you're not doing anything wrong, but not growing necessarily, just staying status quo. So we leaned into that. And it was a very exciting time for our family. Like the Lord spoke to us so much in so many crazy ways through that 21 days. And by the end of it, like from day one, we weren't going anywhere. Day 21, we were moving to Florida. I mean, it was just that. And we were all excited about it. But when reality hit and we actually moved, right? Within 4 months, we were here. My youngest was 13, almost 14. That hit her like a ton of bricks. And she really struggled that first year. My oldest went off to college as originally planned before the Florida thing was happening. So it was kind of, she had her own struggles, but they were more related to that. And the first thing the Lord did when we got here was like, you're not homeschooling. Send them to school. Send them to public school, said the Lord. They had never even been to daycare.
Yeah.
And it wasn't that obvious of a statement, but the piece that came with that decision, I knew it had to be the Lord because I'm not one to, like that would have been like my number one freak out topic, And it was very, very hard on them. And there were times where I was like, why is this the thing? Because this is brutal. But, one of the first big things I felt like the Lord showed me was, and at this point, I'm like a year and a half into my own counseling, that have always been somebody that I just want my kids to be happy. What do I do? What do I need to do to make them feel happy? Like happiness is the key. What that resulted in is a parent that runs around and fixes things for you, that puts a quick Band-Aid on a problem instead of actually examining what's going on. Honestly teaches kids to like self-medicate with distraction or material objects, whatever it is. But my youngest daughter it was a really difficult season. And about almost a year into it, she finally opened up and started telling me why this had been so painful for her. And I opened my mouth to say something encouraging, as I do. And the Lord was like, don't do it. And in that moment, this was so crazy, but it happened in a nanosecond. But like I had this memory of teaching my middle daughter in homeschool when she first started. She didn't learn anything like the way my first daughter did. And I was like really struggling, like, well, oh my gosh, I can't teach this kid. And I had to like figure out what her learning style was, right? And so I did that. And then that was the lesson I had learned years ago with homeschooling. Like you have to learn each kid's style. So in this moment, I'm remembering teaching Chloe and how I had to teach her differently. And the Lord said, you need to learn your daughter's emotional style. And I snapped my mouth shut. And she said, what were you going to say? I said, no, I'm not going to say it. No, tell me what you were going to say. And I said, Karis, what I want to say is there is no timeline for you to adjust to this. I'm sorry I made you feel like there was, And it opened up this thing of like, if I am constantly running around trying to make sure my kids are happy through these rough seasons in their life, I'm not equipping them to deal with seasons of unhappiness, which I'm sorry, that's reality. there's phases that are just really terrible and painful. And we can't, that my kids call it bright sighting. Like, oh, Mom, you're bright sighting things again. I'm learning to keep my mouth shut on that one. So it did change the way I parented because I had to, A, get healthy, and B, I had to be willing to acknowledge where I had failed as a parent and take advantage of the time that I had left. It's never too late to course correct. I mean, I'm learning that now, even with a 22-year-old. You know, I can do things differently.
So a lot of what, you know, you're saying is that your family had to kind of go through these seasons together, which is so beautiful. I mean, the fact that I know that your youngest had struggled with it a little bit differently than maybe, you know, your oldest and your middle child.
Right.
But still, you really came together at the end, and it really was a season of change for all of you, but it was in such a good and God way.
Right.
So I know that that's family oriented, but I really just wanted to hear, like, how were you able to manage your own needs at that time? What did that kind of look like?
A big component of it obviously was I was still in counseling. But I had a good, small but important group of people to support me, friends that were very consistent about making sure I was taking care of myself. The question I would get a lot was like, what are you doing for fun? I was like, I'm still breathing right now. That's fun. You know, that's all I got. But pushing me to like take myself out of that situation again, since I'm constantly like wanting to fix things and have to make sure everybody feels good. Like sometimes I just had to get out of that space. As a person anyways, I'm somebody that needs alone time to recharge. I've always been that way. Mom guilt can kind of make you feel like, oh, that's selfish of me. But it's selfish. What's selfish is not taking care of yourself. And then you're just trying to care for people when you have nothing to give. So having a good support system, people that will push you and be honest with you. And what I mean by that is like, I have one or two people in my life who can say to me, like, that's a bad move as a mom. They would never say it that harshly, but they will tell me if I'm like doing something that's like out of pocket or like not healthy in the long run for anybody that's involved. Also people that are not afraid to tell me like if I'm sharing something with my kids or even if they observe something with my kids to tell me about it. A lot of times I think we don't want feedback from other people about our parenting or our kids and people are afraid to give it. So having really trusted people around you to support you, push you to make sure you're taking care of yourself and to be willing to, that they're a safe person to challenge how you're doing things and ask you to look at it another way. And just, again, for me, it was making time for myself alone. In our extremely broke days after I quit my job, sometimes that was like, I remember one time it was like going to the grocery store by myself. So happy. But one night I didn't come back from the store for a long time. And Anthony called me. He's like, what are you doing? I was like, dude, I am sitting in the van in the Harris Teeter parking lot, eating sushi and listening to music. And man, I have not felt this happy in a while. You know, so just, I guess, knowing what you need.
Yeah.
And having people that will make sure that you follow through with that. Because as moms, we will just run around taking care of everybody else.
Oh my gosh.
And forget about ourselves.
Yeah. I mean, we'll just keep going and going and going on empty, like you said. I think that's so, so important. I know for me personally, that's kind of the same like place that I've been into. I will notice when I'm running on empty and I keep trying to raise, you know, the toddler and now baby. And it's like, oh my goodness, my head is spinning and I, you know, feel so empty, but here I am trying to give. And it was actually someone who's important to me, you know, told me, because I was feeling really guilty at that point too, because I really wasn't spending what I looked like, enough time with the Lord. And it was just really eating at me. And I was like, just every kind of moment I had, I was like, Lord, please forgive me. And I felt like I was just kind of asking for forgiveness over and over and over again, right? For not really taking the time to, meet with him.
Right.
But then that trusted person was like, do you know that your prayer life will also look different depending on the season that you're in?
Yeah.
And I was like,
so good.
Yeah, but still not like understanding. And she was like, no. I mean, like when you're up in the middle of the night and you're feeding your baby, that's also, you serving the Lord.
Right.
That's also you praying to him in a different way.
Yeah, that's awesome.
And it just gave me such a peace and such a freedom to like not have such a high expectation of myself in a moment where that season just really looks different.
Right. Or such a low expectation of God. It's like, hello, you created seasons. You understand that,
right.
that they're a thing.
Right. And I feel like, after I had that conversation with her, I was like, Lord, you are so good. And I'm sitting here asking you forgiveness every moment that I have, but really you're with me when I wake up in the middle of the night. You're with me when I'm trying to, calm my toddler down from a tantrum. You're with me in every single step, every single moment when I'm trying to make dinner, when I'm trying to do this or that for the boys or my husband or, whatever.
Right.
I just thought that was so needed and so good. So it's exactly like you said, to have that like small community of trusted individuals, trusted women, right? That will just really pour into us and let us know when we need to hear that. Because I feel like it was written all over my face that I was stressed, overwhelmed. And I don't know, just having that conversation, that moment, it really shifted, I feel like, our family structure too.
Yeah, that's beautiful.
Because I was thinking it had to look a certain way.
Right.
And then I was like, wait, God is bigger than this.
If you, motherhood is a great season, especially like where you are right now. It's like, lives are actually depending on me to survive, It can be, we can get into that. We can really live that pray continuously. Because there isn't time to sit down and have 3 hours of quiet time in the morning. But I can be uttering breath prayers all throughout my day, the one sentence, and staying constantly connected. And it's a really beautiful way to experience the Lord. And that scripture that when you first come across it, you're like, that's impossible. And it's not. And this is a great season to learn it, because you have no other option.
Yeah. I feel like too, as we're kind of sitting here talking about this, when we're parenting through these different seasons of change and transitions, and we're trying to navigate different waters, our, relationship with the Lord might look different too. But what's so beautiful about that is that after that kind of, after the waves kind of calm down, we can see the Lord in a different way. And it just feels like he keeps revealing himself to us in new ways, right? So that the next time another season or change, transition comes along, we're like, okay, this is going to be uncomfortable for a little while, but I know that after the calm, after the storm, we'll be able to see the Lord in a different way again. Yeah.
He's teaching, at least I have found, every big seismic shift in our life. I had the same feeling of panic, right? Even if it was something I'm happy about, it didn't look like what I thought, like kids being depressed, then I would be like, oh my God. But he asked me very clearly, do you trust me with your kids? And I answered very clearly and very quickly, no. Okay. I knew that was really what my problem was. So it's like every transition is an opportunity at the end of the day to learn to trust him more, Yeah. So I always end up with two questions, and this is what I'm trying to teach my daughters too, because every human is going through all of these changes and they're not going to stop. What am I supposed to be learning from this? What am I supposed to be seeing here, Lord? Like, you shook up the whole world. What am I missing? And secondly, where do I need to trust you more? You know, and that really helped take the fear out of it and invite him in a more blatant way of like, I need you to get through this transition,
right.
you know?
Yeah, that's so good. And that you have those like moments of self-reflection too with the Lord, you know, where do I need to trust you in this?
Right.
I think as moms, we can ask ourselves that question a little bit more too, as far as trusting the Lord, because I mean, let's be honest, sometimes we really do try to do it all by our own self,
right?
Because we're like, I can do this, I can do it 24/7. But I feel like it's in those moments of us being weak that the Lord will step in and say, no, let me take this from you. Trust me in this. Trust me with your kids. And then once we do, we see the Lord in a different way. And then we're kind of released from that pressure that we put on ourselves.
Absolutely.
To have everything together.
And we have to teach our kids that.
Yeah.
When we're running around being the best mom in the world, you know, do we want to raise our kids to serve the Lord or to serve us? You know what I mean? And I don't mean like, do things for me. I mean, like, you can't be like the oracle of your family, you know? And so when you're running around interfering and not letting kids experience what they need to experience, you know, interfering in the name of like helping you, Pastor Stacy says this all the time. It's like you're trying to be their Holy Spirit, and that is not your job. And you can really be harming them in the long run. So we have to be this way ourselves, and we have to point them in that direction too. Otherwise, they're going to be learning it from scratch at age 50, like me.
No, I think the biggest kind of takeaway that I've had from our conversation is the fact that we really just want our kids to depend on the Lord through these seasons of change and transition. And I know that was a really rough time, especially for your youngest, right? And I'm sure your oldest and your middle dealt with it in a different way.
Yeah.
But still, you want them to depend on the Lord more than they depend on us, which can be hard to comprehend sometimes, especially when we both kind of come from a codependent family, you know, background.
Yeah.
That was kind of our similar upbringing as far as codependency. And it's really hard to break that. But once we do, it's going to be so beautiful for our kids.
Yep. And we can see it. We can look down the line, you know. I came from a very codependent background, and I transferred that to my kids. They've worked their way out of it, or it's an ongoing process. But I was saying to somebody recently, it's like, oh my gosh, I can look down the line now and see like when my grandkids are not going to be raised that way, you know, because I obeyed the Lord when he's like, you need help.
Right.
And then my girls followed suit, and it's like that, seeing that pan out is going to be so awesome. I can't wait.
Yeah. No, I love that. And I love that because you decided to make the change to go to counseling and to help yourself. Then your girls saw that and they were like, I really want what mom's doing,
right?
Because she looks healthy and she looks alive again, and she looks like she's full of joy. Not that you weren't before, but in a different.
No, I wasn't.
In a different.
I wasn't. They might have been motivated. They're like, I don't want to start off like how mom started off. Let's skip that part, and that's fine. Good.
Yeah, in a different way. Of course, we want our kids to be better than we ever have been or could be. We want the world for them.
Right.
So any last kind of like comments or advice that maybe you would give to moms out there who are really kind of struggling through seasons of change and transition?
I think the biggest thing is community. I really like what you're doing with this, having these spaces for these conversations. I like to write in my free time, and I was writing something the other day where I think we get, if we're not careful, we can sink into a space where we think that our pain is unique. And when we feel unique, that can also feel lonely. And so when we are willing to like go to that unique pain point, when you look around, there's other people there too. So making sure you're not isolated. Yeah. Making sure you don't fall into the trap of thinking, I'm the only person that feels this way. You're not. And I think women need to be more and more open about where they're weak with safe people. Yeah. Because when you're isolated and alone, that's where the enemy can really get in there and mess with you, which will ultimately mess with your family.
Yeah.
But the Lord doesn't want that for us.
Right.
Like, community is so important. So I'm really glad you're doing this.
Yeah. Thank you so much. Yeah. I just want to say thank you so much for our conversation today. This has just been really eye-opening for me even as well, because I mean, I have a toddler and a baby, but you know, you've kind of already gone through those seasons of change and transition, and now you're raising adults. So it's very different.
Every new transition, you're a first-time mom all over again.
Yeah. And there needs to be a lot of grace there for us as well, I think, because we just kind of put that expectation on us. Like, well, we've raised them this far, so we can make it through again. But no, remember, this is your first time raising adults.
Yeah.
So it's going to look totally different.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I miss those baby and toddler days sometimes.
Well, thank you again so much
for
being here with us. I know that all of our listeners will benefit from this, and I just can't wait to hear what everyone really has gathered from this conversation. So I appreciate it.
Thank you. I appreciate you.
Thanks for joining me today on the Mamas Planted podcast. I hope you found a little inspiration to help you grow in your motherhood journey. If you enjoyed today's episode, please share it with a friend and help us spread the word. And don't forget to follow us on social media for encouragement and updates. You can find us on Instagram at Mamas Planted. Until next time, keep planting those seeds of faith and watch them grow.